Hey everyone, Mike here with another Helm to Tower video. I want to do something a little different here in this new video series I'm starting here. I don't have any names for it or whatever, but I thought it'd be fun to have a place to talk about either upcoming games I'm interested in, maybe just new content updates for already released games and talking about that kind of stuff, and also just a wider breadth of games. You know, I've talked about Wayfinder, First Ascendant, Destiny, a bunch on this channel already. So these games will be similar. I'm even going to talk about Wayfinder a little bit in this video, but you know, these games will have similar vibes to them, but it is going to be a little bit of branching out. Like I have some roguelite games, some bigger MMORPG games, you know, the things I'm interested in. And I think their games will always have you coming back to play, either for their replayability, enjoyment, or maybe they get tons of new content updates and new releases and other things like that. Or they're even early access games that are, you know, looking for support and, you know, feedback and releasing new updates as well through that period of time. So, you know, gonna be talking a breadth of different stuff. So I hope you like it. And, you know, I won't do this rigmarole for every video, but since this is the first one, I thought I'd do it here. If you like this kind of style of video, let me know in the comments below, and feel free to subscribe to the channel because I'll be trying to do maybe one of these at least once a month for sure. Might do a little bit more depending on, you know, how much stuff is announced over time. We'll just have to see. But for now, let's get into some of the things I want to talk about. So the first thing I wanted to shout out was Risk of Rain 2's new upcoming expansion, Seekers of the Storm. Now I love Risk of Rain 2. If you haven't heard of it, it is a 4-player co-op roguelite game. It's been out for a couple of years. They were in early access for a number of years, came out, and there's already actually been a number of little updates for the game since it's launched a few years ago. And there's also been an expansion even before this one. I think it was called Seekers of the Void, I think a similar name. But you know, going off of what came in that update, I think this would be a similar size where, you know, that you'll have new arenas and environments to explore, as well as new characters to play as. That's actually what we have in the preview today. They just showed us one of the first new characters that is coming with this, called the Seeker. They seem very interesting and different from a lot of the other characters that have already come with Risk of Rain 2. If you're familiar with the game, where this character seems more like a support character, where like straight up have moves where you're doing like left, down, right kind of command inputs, and that'll give you kind of a healing burst for you and your allies, but also if enemies are in range of that burst, you'll also do damage to them. There's all kinds of other mechanics with them where they get like the stacks of like energy or something like that, and then you can use that to then revive your downed teammates. So it's pretty interesting for Risk of Rain 2. Like they haven't really had a full-on support character or like healer character like this in the past. So I think that's really cool that they're kind of, you know, trying that stuff out in this game and going into that more cooperative sort of gameplay style. So I'll see how it goes. Of course, with this update, you know, there'll be tons of other stuff like new items to make new builds and fun stuff like that as well. And, you know, we don't have a firm date for it yet, but I think it is still slated for sometime this year in 2024. So expect it to come out, you know, in the next couple of months. You know, Risk of Rain 2 is a ton of fun. I definitely recommend it if you've not really gotten into it yet. Fun co-op experience. Even if you're playing single player, it's a ton of fun, but I think it definitely shines with co-op. There's tons of modding support, so you can play with even more than 4 players if you want to and get crazy. I've seen mods where you're running around as Goku. There's all kinds of crazy stuff with modding support as well. It's a really fun game, worth checking out. The soundtrack also bangs, so definitely worth jumping into if you haven't already. Risk of Rain 2 is on Steam. You can play it there with the expansions, as well as PlayStation and Xbox. You can play it on consoles as well. I think it's even on Nintendo Switch. You can pretty much play it anywhere you would like, but Steam is definitely going to be the place where you can get all the mods and support and all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, definitely Risk of Rain 2 is definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. Highly recommend it. Next up, I have a newly announced game that is called Fellowship. This one's an interesting one. It is going to be a sort of dungeon crawler with 4-player multiplayer co-op. So think about, you know, a traditional MMO and kind of strip out all the other parts besides the main dungeons you would go on with players. So, you know, this will be 4 players going into the dungeon. They'll have a cast of characters to choose from that'll kind of fall into the classic Holy Trinity style you see in traditional MMOs, but now you'll have like characters who are specifically tanks, characters who are healers, and characters who are DPS, and you'll have to fit those into your play styles and figure out how you want to play as them, and so on and so so forth to take on dungeons, of scaling difficulty with your friends. So it sounds like a lot of fun and pretty interesting to kind of strip it down to this kind of more fast-paced like dungeon experience. I'll actually hop to the Steam page and give you a better context of some of the things they're talking about here. So let's see what they have to say. So it says, experience the Holy Trinity and build the ultimate team of tanks, healers, and damage dealers to take down hordes of enemies and imposing bosses. Work together with your friends to overcome the greatest challenges, creating unbreakable bonds and memorable moments. Players can also flex their individual skills on the competitive leaderboards that show you where you stand in Fellowship. So there you go, play alongside with your friends in teams with 4-player co-op multiplayer in a rich fantasy world full of challenging enemies and exciting rewards. Swap between a large pool of tank, healer, and DPS roles with unique kits to build the perfect balance for your team. Every run will feel like a brand new challenge, with dungeons that will get more difficult as players progress and level up. Players will never outlevel the game with seasonal updates, dungeon modifiers, and new features and rewards that will keep each run fresh and exciting, adding another layer of replayability. This sounds pretty promising. Again, this is pretty early on. If you want to go to their Steam page now, they do have signups for a closed alpha of the game. So if you want to give the game a chance or get the chance to play the game, go there, sign up, and see what it's like, and give your feedback as they continue to build out the game. But I'm expecting this game to maybe be like an early access thing, maybe next year. They haven't really said the release plans for it because it was just announced I think a week ago, but it seems pretty cool. I like the idea of like this sort of more focus on dungeon content, the idea of having multiple playable characters who can play different ways. The visuals and aesthetics, if you haven't looked at it, of course in the video, that'll be very much, it seems heavily inspired by the visuals of like World of Warcraft and that kind of stuff. So it seems pretty interesting, and I think it'll be worth checking out as it progresses. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Again, there's no firm date on it or anything, but it will be on Steam, on PC at least, and there will be seasonal content and updates and things like that. So we'll just have to keep an eye on this one as it progresses. I'm pretty curious about it. Next up, there's been some interesting updates about Wayfinder. Again, it's a game I previously covered on the channel. It's had its ups and downs, but I think there's some exciting stuff coming pretty soon for the game, so I thought I'd shout it out here. So, we recently there've been teases of the Quality of Life Update 2 that the game will be getting soon. It seems like we're finally beginning the expanded housing branch of the game, so you'll be able to have like a larger house to put more items in, and there'll maybe be like more items to put in the house altogether. We'll have to see what is in store for that. They also have a lot of interesting combat refinements and enhancements that they've shown, where you'll have like much more like tactile control almost of the combat, where you can kind of more like aim individual swings of like large swords and other kind of melee weapons. So pretty cool updates to the game coming in that patch, but also pretty interesting to hear. If you want to go over to Minnmax channel, I'll link it down below. There's an interview with Joe Madureira and Ryan Stefanelli. They're kind of the two leads of Airship Syndicate, and they did an interview there, and not only talked about Wayfinder, but also talked about the history of Airship and kind of, pitching games and all kinds of like game dev kind of insider talk. It was a really cool update, but I'm sure, for Wayfinder fans, it was really interesting to hear kind of they gave some vague ideas of what's kind of next for the rollout of the game. And it seems like, they kind of alluded to in that video that probably looking at October timeframe for the 1.0 release of the game. So that's actually not too far away in the grand scheme of things. Like that's basically like less than 2 months away.
Ryan, Wayfinder, home stretch. When's the 1.0 launch? When do you think it's gonna hit here?
Have we said what the release date is? I don't even remember. It's not far off. Not far off. Did we say? I don't actually remember. Fall? October-ish. That sounds good.
Okay.
We did not say? People saying no, we did not say. Yeah. It's
later this year. This year?
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, fall.
Yeah.
Fall. It's coming. We're trying to get it. We're trying to get it out. I mean,
so the plans could change. We've definitely seen it with Wayfinder before, where it's had its ups and downs with its content releases, and they've had a lot of challenges with the layoffs and of course Digital Extremes bowing out of the development and all that, things like that. So we'll have to see how it goes, but that's kind of where they're generally aiming for. So I think that's pretty exciting in general, just because if you look at it this way, like that means if we get this Quality of Life Update 2 pretty soon, that means we're probably also be getting the PlayStation 5 release also very soon, as well as the game coming to 1.0, which will put it on Xbox and add tons of new content as well. So it'll be a big release for the game here pretty soon. I think we're going to get like a ramp up of a lot of new updates about this game. So I'm looking forward to it. I definitely will plan to cover that game probably on its own in individual videos in the future, as long as, all these things pan out. But, that's where the game is at right now, and I'm still looking forward to it. Again, Wayfinder's in early access on Steam. I think it's worth checking out there right now. But, again, hopefully it'll be on PlayStation 5 pretty soon, and then Xbox soon after, so console players can finally jump in and play this game, because I think it's a great time. And I hope that, it gets a new life through this version and people keep playing it. Next up, I have another roguelite that was recently, that's I've been kind of anticipating. This is called Windblown. This is from Motion Twin. The developers behind Dead Cells, which is a really amazing roguelite game that came out a few years ago. It got tons of content updates over the years, but now they're finally making a new game that is going to be a 3-player co-op roguelite game. You can play it, of course, solo, but you can also play it with your friends online. It looks super fun, very colorful and vibrant. Aesthetics, tons of interesting looking combat and all kinds of stuff. It looks very flashy and fast. That's the kind of stuff I like. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be launching in early access later this year. Again, they don't have a specific time frame for this stuff, but they did recently have a dev blog come out talking about some of the plans they have for the game. Like, it was a really interesting deep dive into kind of the build systems and other kinds of stuff where they want to have a lot of build variety in the game for different plays and going on different runs and making builds and things like that. It sounds really cool. I always like that kind of stuff in games, so having that in this roguelite experience sounds really fun. And of course, also being able to pair that with your friends and playing online with friends sounds really fun. So I'm really looking forward to this game. Again, in that same dev blog, they said they're on track for releasing that sometime this year in early access on Steam, so definitely going to keep my eye out for that one and definitely plan on looking more into it as it releases. But, definitely want to get on people's radars. I think Windblown is going to be a really cool game coming hopefully soon. Last up, I would say this is probably the most nebulous of these games I have here in this video, and that is Chrono Odyssey. This is a game that was announced a few years ago and is going to be a new MMORPG that looks amazing in terms of visuals and things they've shown for it so far. Have not seen a ton of in-depth things about it yet, but I will say, it was refreshing to hear somewhat recently that they held some kind of internal, had some people come in and do some combat testing, and players from, I guess, people from some community, maybe some of their other games the studio has worked with. And, they came in, gave some feedback, and now they're working on that stuff. Again, I think producer also put out a dev diary kind of recently talking about, how they've been doing this stuff and kind of working on the intricacies and making it a better experience. And I'm sure this will lead to them getting the game in a better state to potentially put out start doing alphas and maybe even betas probably relatively soon, or maybe early next year. Again, there's no real time frame on this game, but I think it was at some point originally slated for this year, and I don't think it is anymore. It probably is going to be, we might finally start seeing some stuff for this game in terms of betas and builds maybe next year. So we'll just have to wait out and see. But again, I think it looks amazing and beautiful. I think the more action focused of some of the combat looking in the game appeals to me as a fan of those kind of action RPGs rather than the more traditional MMO style gameplay. We'll just have to see how this goes. I'm definitely keeping my eye on this one, but it's still so nebulous that I can't be too hype about it, if I'm just frank. But we'll have to see how it goes. Anyway, Chrono Odyssey, I hope it's a really cool game, and we'll just have to see what happens with it as it progresses. Probably sometime next year. But there you have it, guys. That was the first one of these kind of new update videos I was doing. I hope you liked it. Maybe these games you haven't heard of yet, or maybe you already had and are interested in them too. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I appreciate you watching. I'll be back soon with some other videos covering, Destiny First Descendant, and I'll be doing more videos like these in the future. I'm going to try and maybe do one maybe once a month. That's kind of where I'm thinking at right now. But anyways, appreciate you sticking it through with this video here on the channel, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.